It is extremely upsetting for me to honestly reflect on what I've done with my life in the last 5 years. I had an opportunity to become an intellectual. I had an opportunity to pursue basically any education, any career that I wanted. And instead, I cheated on my boyfriend. I had fantasies, and I let my sex life ruin my life. I let my desires ruin Isel's life. Instead of doing the work which would produce a version of myself that I can be proud of, that I can actually display to other people proudly, I have created a monster that I am ashamed of showing to other people. I was focused on my body, my beauty. I wanted somebody to tell me I was beautiful again and again and again. I wanted somebody to tell me my pussy was amazing again and again and again. That my ass was amazing again and again. That I really, really all I cared about was somebody telling me that I have an amazing vagina. And it is really horrifying for me to look back and actually reflect that yes, that was what I wanted. Because if you actually wanted to become a brilliant person, Melissa, then why did you spend all this time having messages with a guy who was telling you that you have an amazing ass and pussy? Why wasn't I talking to people who were actually challenging me to become a brilliant person, to become a better person ethically, morally? Why did I spend so many hours filming myself? Why did I spend so much time taking pictures of my vagina and my ass? Why did I take these videos? Really, I just saw myself as a whore. And it is very, very hard for me to accept that I will never get that time back. I will never get those years of my life back. And I feel so shallow. I feel so disgusting. It's just, I knew I was getting older. I knew that this was probably the last time in my life when people would still see me as a sexually vital person. And I let that totally take over my life, and it's very disappointing to me. I'm very disappointed in myself. I feel just like I am a disappointment to women in general. It just...
You had female fans.
It's very upsetting to know that for hundreds of years women have been trying to be taken seriously, been trying to be something other than just a commodity, just their vagina, just a womb. I was just, not taking that really seriously and living my life that way, in a way that would actually be admirable. So yeah, I feel really disgusted with myself, and why was I thinking that way? Why was I behaving that way?
You just want to mention, you had female fans who wrote to you saying that you were a symbol of a female intellectual that way. I remember female viewers writing in and saying that their own aspiration to be more than just a bimbo, more than just a pretty face or a nice body, or however you want to put it, a vagina, more than just a whore, that they saw in you an example of a woman who was making the effort to really live the life of the mind and being intellectual despite growing up in the circumstances you grew up in.
Yeah, I'm really, really disappointed in myself, and I'm really sorry that I let everybody down this way. Because, yeah, I do recognize that I'm capable of doing better. Just really gets at me that the books that I read didn't actually produce anything that... Yeah, I have responsibilities I should have taken seriously. I feel disappointed thinking about your daughter. That's so fucking... I would never give advice to any woman, any girl, to behave the way that I have. I would never tell a child to do the things that I did, so why did I do them? It's just very hard to cope with. Obviously, I've been living with the knowledge that I did these things to some extent, but actually sharing them with Isel and talking about it publicly in YouTube videos is different, and I'm finding it really hard to function, just do anything. It's just overwhelming sometimes. I know all I can control is what I do moving ahead. You know, my life is not over. I just have to keep trying and keep trying to make it right.
Do you remember?
I know it's never going to be right. Of course, Isel is going to be heartbroken over this until the day he dies. It's just, there's no question that he's always going to see me differently. And he used to see me as somebody who was intelligent enough and hardworking enough to be a stockbroker. Nobody else has thought that about me. And I just live with that disappointment every day. Oh, God.
Do you remember the extent to which this whole story, this whole chapter of your life, or these several chapters of your life, it began with a critique of the university education system and you reflecting on how you had wasted your own years in university, and that now you wanted to compensate for that. You wanted to really become an intellectual. You wanted to develop in a way you'd failed to when you were in university yourself, you know? But there are so many implicit aspects of what I did right in university that I was trying to teach you and show you. When I was in university, I didn't send one text message to one woman. Like, you know, for like whatever it was, for 4 years, I was really devoted to the life of the mind. To develop,
yeah,
you know,
you've talked about
in a word, I was devoted to philosophy.
I'm sorry, I don't
No. I just say, like, in so many ways, you knew, and both in your relationship with me and in your relationship with Oliver, you were constantly being reminded of the sense of mission and purpose you had in chapter 1 of this story. Put it that way. That you knew you had completely wasted your own university years. And now this was your second chance. Literally at getting a university education. Your second chance to get a BA, to get an MA. Like in that sense, directly to go back to it. But more, in a more impalpable sense, this was your chance to really develop your mind. And instead, you went back to this addiction with text messaging people all day, every day. Text messaging men, where all you are doing is soliciting these men to tell you you're beautiful, to tell you they want to see your vagina, to tell you that they masturbate looking at pictures and videos of your vagina. That's very literally the addiction you had. That ruined
right.
4 years of your life. 4 years of your life, which you could have learned a great deal, but
4
also
years
could
of
have
my life.
gone back to university.
I could have gone back to university. I could have.
Yeah. We were all supporting you. All of us, I mean, it wasn't just me. It was me most of all. It was me most of all. But we were all supporting you to live a new and better life.
You were supporting me, Isel. Oliver was supportive.
Yeah. He was trying.
Yeah.
And my mother and so on, you know.
Yeah.
We all thought
I
we
feel
did.
really fucking bad thinking of your mother, because she also had a lot of high hopes for me.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's...
You know, I want to mention one thing where
I did it to myself, so I know I have no right to cry, but it's just so... so hard to handle sometimes.
You said to me one day, this was one day when you showed some initiative, you said, look, Zell, if we're going to get serious about history, politics of China, history, politics, philosophy, language, literature of China, but politics especially, economics, but history and politics, if we are going to get serious about China, we have to make the time to read one history book about each of the dynasties. So we have to read like the history of the Zhou dynasty, the history of the Han dynasty. We have to go through dynasty. And I remember, I realized how much work that was. I was like, whoa. Like, obviously there's a sense in which you're right. It's like that was, look, just that in that moment, I realized how much hard work that was going to be. And I don't really want to do it. I'm a little bit lazy too. But I was like, okay, Melissa, you're right. If you and I take on this project, obviously we would make YouTube videos talking about each of the books.
Yeah.
But okay, you're right. We can read one history book for each of the dynasties in order. We can really get to grips with dynasty by dynasty, the history of China, century by century. And there were many centuries there. And that's something I'd never done. And the reason why that never happened is because you were cheating on me, is because you were addicted to sending text messages from 8 a.m. till midnight, scurrying away, masturbating on camera, being a cam whore, secret video calls. It was this uniquely corrosive form of cheating, of infidelity.
You're absolutely right, and it really means a lot to me that you remember that.
Of course.
That was something that I had talked about with you.
I
talked
believe
about so
in
many
you.
different projects in which I was like motivated to.
I believe that was.
Only lasted
I
so
believe
long.
that was who you really were, and I believe that was the better person you wanted to be. 5 years later, and it's not. The truth is, you are a crazy bisexual cam whore. You are deeply narcissistic in the truest sense of the word. Like, I'm sorry, I've read these messages. I've seen you directly soliciting these men, directly bullying them into, giving you the narcissistic supply you want, giving you the flattery you're seeking again and again. And what you're willing to do for that,
Well, I'm very glad that you still are by my side, because you know me, and
Yeah.
you know these patterns, you understand, and you can see through my behavior, so I really appreciate it. I mean,
who you really are fits into the life I want to lead now, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I really do think you can work with me in comedy videos, comedy filmmaking, cinematography, even documentary filming. The life I want to lead now as a creative artist and as a writer, the life I want to lead going to stand-up comedy clubs. I think you can get on stage and do a comedy routine about exactly what you're talking about in this video. You can do a stand-up comedy routine that opens with, hey, have you ever been obsessed with sending men photographs of your vagina on the internet? And then no? Just me? Well, let me ask, how many guys in the audience have been obsessed with sending dick pics? Yeah, that's different, ain't it? You could totally make comedy and social commentary out of your own heartbreak in this. And I see value. That's the life I want to lead now. That's the life I want to lead in the next 5-10 years. That is not the life I was trying to lead 10 years ago. 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago. It's not. And, obviously it is still tragic. I am heartbroken with what you did with the last 5 years. And the impact it's had on me is totally devastating. But, with that having been said, the reason why I feel there's a future for us has to do with who I want to be and what kind of life I lead. And guess what? A crazy bisexual cam whore can fit into that. In terms of even now, the conversations, because I show you, I have no secrets from you. The conversations I'm having about you with other women, you can see it's like, well, this is who Melissa is. I do not need you to be this kind of research-oriented intellectual plugged into the politics and history and economics of China or anywhere else. I can take you at your current level of sophistication and move on to leading this more creative life I want to lead. It's still a tragedy. I mean, it's still a heartbreaking tragedy.
I appreciate your optimistic approach at this stage, but I really am mourning the loss of that.
Right.
Because for so long we talked about it. For so long we talked about you getting a PhD, or if not getting a PhD, that you'd still be an intellectual. You'd still be researching and, you know, publishing books.
And we talked about you having a baby too. I mean, you mentioned being a stockbroker. There were many, many roles. Stockbroker, importing, exporting. But these were economic roles linked to Chinese politics, Chinese language, where it's like you could be importing, exporting things from China, playing the stock market with as it connects to China. Like, that was a very dynamic role. But every single one of those, whenever I talked it through with you, it was like, yes, and this has a flexible schedule that will allow you to have a baby. You know, so us having a baby and us having a family and so on, that was...
That's right, you did mention that.
Every time. Hundreds of thousands of times.
Every time that we talked about career, we also talked about...
And the reality is, you were promising another man you were going to have a baby with him instead. That behind my back, you weren't just telling this man you masturbated looking at his penis. You were telling him that you, within 2 weeks of meeting him, you wanted to be pregnant with his baby. You wanted to marry him, not me. And you know what? I think the simple truth is, you would have said that to the other men, just if circumstances kind of permitted. You know, like the same kind of desperate game you were playing with this one guy. There were other guys you were cheating on me with, or you can say attempting to cheat. Like you were starting the same cycle with other men, and you absolutely would have said the same things to them.
It's disgraceful. It's just so terrible. I can't deal with it sometimes, including this morning where I was confronted with that. Yes, it is true. I said that.
Right.
And although I only said that to one guy, I understand your point that I was so much wrapped up in this. Narcissistic supply is the term that you've used. I think that's accurate. That it could have happened had the right conditions been met with another guy.
If they'd just been wanting to spend more time with you. A lot of these other guys were not willing to spend that much time messaging you and sending videos back and forth and stuff. Just say, going.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
So it's, I know in actuality how I felt about having a baby with Isel, and I know everything that went into that and how much it meant to Isel as well, knowing that I disappointed him this way, knowing that he's now living with this heartbreak, and how I'd basically pushed it out of my memory.
That's right.
Pushed it out of my mind that I'd said that to this other man.
Yeah.
Is disturbing. It's like disturbing to recognize that this is an aspect of my character, an aspect of my mentality, that I'm able to lie about something and even lie to myself, which is, it's just, and hard for Isel to cope with too.
In a phrase, the selective memory loss phenomenon, the selective amnesia phenomenon, it's one of the most disturbing and dangerous things about living in the same apartment with you, Melissa.
Yeah.
And I have to worry all the time. It's not just that you won't keep your promises. It's not just that you will break your promises. It's not just that you will lie to me, you will manipulate me, you will deceive me, right? But beyond that, you can literally forget that you ever made the promise at all. You can have selective amnesia and you can make up false memories. And for anyone in the audience who's thinking like, oh, well, Isel, why do you assume your memory is perfect? 99% of the time, I can bring up the email or the Facebook message or the video. I know my memory is perfect because everything we do is on video and Facebook message and email. There's actual proof of what I said or what you promised. 99% of the time. So, and also the other 1%, she remembers once anyway, she remembers that it happened once we talk it through for a couple hours or something. But yeah, that selective amnesia element, it makes everything worse.
And that's another reason why I feel so shit about myself, is because, number one, I think back to some of the early literature I read, the fact that women have for centuries been considered crazy and unreliable. Like, knowing that I am fitting into that is extremely upsetting. And how I see things with my mother now. My mother is mentally ill, and I don't want to end up like my mother. And it's just, I don't want to be a disgrace to women, I want to actually make women proud. So that's something that's really getting at me, because, you talked about this is something precious that I had, if you talk about my vagina, if you talk about, telling somebody that you want to have their baby, that's extremely precious. That's like, what do I have? What else do I have? And I'm giving it away to this scumbag. It's just so fucking terrible.
Just for him to tell you you're pretty. Just for him to tell you make him come.
Yeah.
Just to tell you that he likes to look at your vagina. Nothing else.
So yeah, it's despicable, and I can't cope with it some mornings, some days, or I'm just Anyway, this too shall pass, and I know moving forward, Isel is going to be really struggling to cope with this, and I have to be the person to console him. It's my responsibility. I did the wrong thing. I did so many wrong things. I did so many things that broke his heart and disappointed him, and now I understand your optimism here is fantastic. It's a credit to you. It shows that you're a person with integrity, that you still are looking for some positive future, and I should be too. I should be glad that you are interested in comedy and drama and making some kind of work of art. You are somebody who is motivated to do that, rather than being a researcher, rather than being what it is that I hoped I could do. I hoped I could accomplish, but didn't actually do in reality. Like, if I had wanted that, if I had wanted to be respected, esteemed as a scholar, why?
Yeah, but even if you wanted to
do
just
any
be,
of the things to be
even if you
respectable.
wanted to be respected by the men who had sex with you, including me, like if you wanted the respect of me, and if you wanted the respect of the other men you were cheating on me with, and if you wanted the respect of other men hypothetically, you'd have sex with and not be cheating on me with, you know what I mean, like openly,
Yeah. Yes.
Then also you haven't lived your life in that way at all,
No, not at all. So yeah, I find it difficult to move this from tragedy to comedy, but I do recognize the ways in which it's comedic.